Hi everyone, welcome to Build with Shreya. Today we are at the GIIC, which is happening at the Execa, which is an amazing venue near Brandenburg Gates. And we have a really good line of guests today who we're talking to in depth around innovation that's going to happen with the Indo-German partnership coming along in more of a digital sense. So, Bettina, I keep thinking about how work has changed. It's no more about just what we do, it's also about what it means to us, um, how we identify what is valuable to us. So, I want to understand a little bit about your journey and what it means to you.
Well, thank you for your interest in my journey. And indeed, it's one of those classical ones where, had you asked me 30 years ago, would I be sitting here today having this conversation with you? I for sure would not have been able to anticipate it. But what I always knew for my journey is that I wanted to be linked to the world of politics, because my understanding is that our daily lives are driven by the frameworks that politics build for us and make for us. And what I also, from a very, very early age, was convinced in is that we can co-create those frameworks. And that very often, I guess, politicians, if you want to generalize, or bureaucrats, well, they rely on experts from society, from academia, from the private sector to feed them with information so that those frameworks can be co-created. So my path is one of interest in politics for the right reasons, again, in order to create a better society and a better environment for people. But I really didn't actually start in that whole labor market environment. I was active in a few other industries and landed up in the workforce solutions or the private employment services industry more by coincidence. So I've been there now for almost 16 years. And of course, my understanding now is that we need to co-create the labor market so that in this world of work, we can build the best possible systems for everybody. And if I can maybe pick up a comment or the comment you made, you're right that purpose is driving many of us. But you know what? Actually, it's the lucky ones of us. Because for many, many people, work is still about really, well, paying the bills, of course, and making sure that you get food on the table. And so that question of purpose is a luxury to some extent. So I recognize, of course, the question, and I know there's a whole societal and a whole generational element behind it, but I also want to recognize that it's actually the question that a few privileged among us can ask themselves.
You've seen work evolve across the world, different regions, different cultures. So as you explained how and what work means to you, what do you think it means to the world now, in the current time? And how do you think the balance between purpose and productivity is shifting with what's going on in the world right now?
Well, it's when you now go a step further and understand that there is the economical factor, of course. If I break it down to the individual, to me, work is inherently actually identity building. And that's where today I think we're struggling a lot with the notion that if possible, many people are actually striving to work less, and there's a negative connotation with the notion of working and working hard and working to achieve something. This might be very cultural, and maybe this is a perspective which is very northern hemisphere oriented. But the notion that work is absolutely inherent with humanity, to me, is one of the baselines that we need to continue to keep in the back of our minds. And of course, as we're having technology and we're having artificial intelligence that supposedly replaces us, as we're hearing in a lot of places, I know we keep talking about the fact that it replaces tasks that are menial, But actually, there's a lot of people who even find meaning and purpose. We were talking about just that in those menial tasks. So we really need to be very careful around that notion of replacement. I'm, of course, one of those that says AI is good when it augments humans. I get it as well. But we're still in too early times right now to really be able to understand the impact on work overall and per se.
So, how do you think the balance between purpose and productivity, we were talking about purpose, is changing with how the world is disrupting and things are changing? So, how do you see the balance and how do you think it's shifting?
What a tough question you're asking me here. But what we see lately is that the notion of productivity is definitely rising much higher on the agenda. And obviously linked to AI. There was a study by MIT that was published somewhere after the summer, which actually revealed that currently only 5% of all investments in AI are yielding a return on investment for businesses. So there's 95% that are getting lost in terms of productivity. That's, of course, a huge damper. And look, just like everybody else, I'm watching the billions and billions that are being invested in AI all over the world, all over industries, in all types of sectors. And I keep asking myself, if we only had invested a fraction of that into, people, into talent, how much better would the world actually look today? So I'm keeping a very close eye on that one. And it's going to be that conflict that we will have to resolve indeed. And whether it's productivity and purpose, that's surely one of those big issues we have to solve. But in general, the question of, do we just continue like this? Are we actually creating value with the path that we've engaged in? And indeed, what it means for work in general, we're only at the beginning of that conversation.
I think the bigger question is like, how does the human element get transformed with the way world is changing? Like earlier, we saw the dot-com bubble come in, and then we had access to Google Maps, and now we don't need to ask for directions from anyone. So we are very independent. So, having that connection with someone just comes truly out of choice, and it's no more something that is needed. Right. And so we see a lot of it decreasing already. And with AI coming in and things now, people becoming even more independent. How do you see that changing further? Like,
again, and
more of a comment.
Look, we're generalizing, and we see people becoming more independent. We see very likely a lot of entrepreneurship happening as well. I'm absolutely delighted that it allows, it democratizes for many people access to information, of course. But then I'm also worried by those developments that have actually increasing the number of people that are lonely, increasing the number of people who are starting to cause harm to themselves because they follow the guidance of AI. So, look, again, we have to put it all in perspective. I want to believe that the current developments are for the better of almost humanity here, if I think about it. But it will only happen if we apply the absolute rigorous ethical and responsible mindset. And then, of course, at the starting point of everything is the data and are the data pools. I just these days heard that, for instance, in the medical field, the entire data used in cancer research only covers 14% of the global population, which happen to be, as very often in medicine, middle-aged men to some extent. So 86% of the world's population is not represented in the data that is today, therefore, advising on how to, either treat people in the cancer space or obviously even apply medical interventions, and that is dangerous. That is dangerous. So let's be incredibly rigorous, and that's why I'm one of those who also asks to look at the speed at which we're doing this. I understand we need innovation. I get the excitement behind it, but I do believe that we need to get that critical mindset and keep that as much as we can.
Coming to responsible AI, as the chair of Adecco's responsible AI committee, what steps do you think the committee is taking to make sure that innovations still tend to be people-centric?
Well, I mean, that is the absolute baseline, right? At the Adecco Group, we operate in whatever is jobs, and obviously for us, the human is front and center there. And picking up on what I just said, we are indeed on a daily basis confronted with that balance between innovation and the speed that we as a company also want to provide our clients and the workers. And as I mentioned, that necessity to, for sure, not harm anybody who will use any technology that was either developed or purchased or deployed by the group. And of course, we don't want to be the ones who perpetuate biases, for instance. Look, the way the Responsible AI Committee goes at it is an understanding that this is a journey, an understanding that the committee itself needs to constantly upskill itself and train itself. It's the understanding that we need to bring in as much expertise as we can from expert voices, also from outside the company. We are driven by a very collaborative approach. So we engage with those partners who also build products for us at the group. There's some major tech companies in the world that the group has the pleasure of working with. So we engage with the responsible AI teams of those companies. We also engage and collaborate in initiatives such as the UNESCO Women for Ethical AI initiative, where we're one of the major partners. So it's moving and progressing in collaboration and constantly also questioning ourselves and being critical in that journey.
So let's talk about the good things about AI. So did you see a moment where AI actually empowered people?
Of course. And again, look, I see it often. And if I look at the Adecco Group, we have introduced wonderful AI-driven tools that help our recruiters, that help them on a daily basis focus on what they want to do first and what they do best, which is to engage with candidates and to identify with candidates, with those workers who come to us, what the best possible match would be. And there's the whole administrative tasks. There's a whole element of background checks and identity checks in many countries that now are automated, and that now technology and AI can do for those colleagues. And so AI in recruitment clearly has been a very positive development, because we have been there in an industry which focuses on the human. It has allowed our experts to do exactly that.
And you work very closely with organizations like OECD and B20 on employment and education. So, from your perspective, what is one global issue which is related to workforce that we're not talking about?
Well, if you bring up those fora, I can tell you the big issues are on the agenda. Because there is so much to talk about. I would probably wish that some of them would be put higher up in the order of when they're being discussed. And that's why there's one topic for me currently where I believe that there would be a big impact if we managed on a global scale to provide a framework that would work at national level, and that is the international talent mobility piece, where it is not new, and it's the history of humanity that people will move around and will be mobile. It's the history of humanity that people migrate also for climate reasons, for economic reasons, of course. It is unfortunately the history of humanity that people will have to flee regions that are in conflict or in war. And so to have international mobility of people, again, is a reality, but we are currently in a time in history, and there's a zeitgeist where countries are closing borders, and they are making it very difficult for that talent to actually then build a livelihood. And I would wish for all of us to tackle that issue from a different lens, and to set up a system also with talent corridors, where, of course, companies that I represent are a key actor and partner for ethical, compliant, and very constructive talent corridors.
So, if we just sort of take a more specific approach towards India and Germany collaboration. So, in terms of policy design for easy transfer of skills, for migration, for a opportunity-rich global workforce, what are your ideas there?
Look, they're not groundbreaking, and the ideas they're all there. What is needed is the political will, and then with the political will is also the understanding that there's an inclusion discourse and an inclusion narrative that needs to happen, and that seems difficult in some countries right now. I am a Swiss citizen, so I feel in no position to comment, of course, on any specific German or Indian political agenda, but prioritizing that exchange of talent and ensuring again that the frameworks are conducive and positive towards that will be beneficial for both countries.
So you have led some of the most powerful rooms in the world, rooms that are not only difficult to enter, but also having a voice heard, right? So what is your advice to young leaders, especially women, who want to make a change, want to have their voice heard, not just be the ones who are there on the table, but who also are part of what is actually discussed there?
Well, first of all, kudos if you're sitting at the table. Then already you've actually made the biggest step, right? Because in the biggest usually part, it's a matter of finding your seat. Then, of course, you're right. I mean, should you just sit there and stay silent and say nothing? I must say there is a big power in listening as well. And this will lead me to what I would like to answer to you today, which is exactly that: listen and identify what the problem is that is being discussed at the table. And if not at the entire table, but the problem that you have identified one of the stakeholders has at the table. And then the likelihood that the fact that you're there means that you have one of the solutions is very high. But then be very specific and present yourself as a solution provider to what is on the table, and that will grab the attention of whoever is sitting there. If it is just to echo what is known in general, well, people will listen, but they will very likely not give you the microphone a second time. But if you can really showcase that, first of all, again, you've listened, you grasp what the issue is, and then you're able to present a solution, then you're good. And to anybody, but it's true that I still see a lot of young women also do this. For some reason, one always starts with an apology for taking the floor. There is no reason for you to apologize. You are there. So sit into your space and use that opportunity that you were given. And if you feel that you should speak for a minute or 5 minutes, do it, and do not apologize for having taken the time. The others also don't apologize. So see it as a contribution that you're bringing, and not as a chunk of the other's time that you're taking.
That's an amazing advice, even for me. Thank you so much, Bettina. So we've come to the end of our podcast today.
What a pity.